Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial we'll continue with our project. So in the last tutorial we have been able to build a back-end application. We are being able to basically be able to send the data, create an API that can deal with sending the data to the front end, right? So just in my current directory, so I'm just going to go ahead and simply just doing uvcon and then main and then app and then -, reload. So this way we have ended last time. So let me just type that, so reload and then run that. So this way we have ended last time. So if I open up this in the browser, now we should get this. So if I go to /docs, we should be able to get this, right? So and then if I can go try it out and then simply execute to make a request, and you can get back the data, right? So now we're going to go ahead and build the front end, which is going to contain the different graphs that we can use basically visualize the data, right? So we're going to be building the front end in this tutorial. So the first thing we need to do is actually create a Nextjs app. So to create a Nextjs app, this is a command. I'm going to be using yarn instead of npm or npx. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply copy this and then simply go back into my terminal. So I'm going to go and use this side. I have another terminal open here, and I'm just going to go ahead and use this ls. I'm going to go ahead and create another file. I'm going to call it dash, or let's just call it front end if you want. So front end, and then okay, it's actually mkdir. Let me just call it dashboard instead. So I'm going to say dashboard and then simply change directory into my dashboard. And then once I'm in there, I'm going to simply paste the command that I have copied, which is yarn create next app, and then simply press enter. So this is going to go ahead and create for us the next app that we want. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it let's call it dashboard. So dashboard, and then press enter, and that should go ahead and create for us the next application that we want. So once this is done creating, we need to install a couple of things more. So we need to install just go back here. We need to install this library that we're going to be using to create our app. So we're going to be using Chartjs as I mentioned in the last tutorial. So there's a Chartjs has a React extension which is called React Chartjs 2, and you're going to simply copy this command right here and simply go ahead, and you can pause the video and type out this command if you want. So I'm going to go back in here. Once it's done creating, I'm going to go ahead and paste that command to install Chartjs app. Okay, sorry, library rather. Yeah, so as you can see, you are done creating that dashboard. That's why if I do an ls, you can see it right there. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here, and I have this open right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and close it. So now close it, and I'm going to navigate back here and simply type in code. Let me just exit out here and simply type in code here. So code to open my Visual Studio Code. So feel free to use any editor that you're comfortable using. I'm just going to be going with VS Code. So once I have my VS Code open, I'm going to drag it and place it here. Okay, so this fills the whole page. So once we have it there. So once this is done, we also want to go ahead and install the other library that I have, which is yarn create the other library is Chart.js library. So just run that command to install Chart.js library, and once that's done installing, I also want to go ahead and use Bootstrap. So I'm going to copy this command here to add Bootstrap as well. So once I have, I'm going to simply paste it here and then press enter to run that. So that also have a Bootstrap already installed. So once we have all this installed, I can just simply clear this app and then simply do a yarn and then dev to run my application. So I just press enter. Okay, let me say it says that I have to change directory into dashboard again. So I should have just used a full stop instead. So it's a yarn dev, and let's wait for it to run. I should have just used dashboard instead of specifying dashboard again. Yeah, it best makes a duplication, but yeah, that's basically it. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply open this up, and we have the application running. So this is a Nextjs application. I'm not going to go into depth about what Nextjs is and all of that. We're just going to keep things very simple. I have another video where I explain in depth what Nextjs is, what the different files are, and all that. In this video, I'm not going to go into that depth about Nextjs. So once we're in here, I'm just going to go into pages. I'm going to go into index right here, and in here I'm just going to delete everything. So I'm going to delete everything except even the header tag. I'm going to go ahead and delete the header tag. I'm going to delete basically everything. So I'm just going to be left with this right here. Okay, so once I'm left with this, what I simply want to go ahead and do is first let me just display a simple page here. So it's going to be the container, and I'm going to have a h3 tag. So I'm going to have a h3, and this is just going to be we're going to call it code with prints. Okay, and I'm going to give this a class. So I'm going to give it a class, and with class name, and the class name is going to be styles I'm going to say styles.title, so styles.title, just like that. So once we have this done, I can just go back and check if it's running. So you can see we have it right here. Okay, so good. So once we have that there, I'm also want to go ahead and add other functionality. You can add the, so later on you're going to go ahead and add the grid for the chart, but for now what I simply want us to do right now is simply make a request. First of all, let's go ahead and actually deal with the layout. So I want to create a layout, our own custom layout. So in here I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to call it components. Okay, components. So press that, and instead of components I want to go ahead and add a layout component in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go into my components, add a new file, and I'm going to call it layout.js. okay, so once I'm in, I'm going to do rcf react functional component. Okay, I don't think I have the extension installed on this computer, but what I'm simply going to go ahead and do is create a react functional component. I used to do this just by typing rfc, and that should create it, but for now it looks like I don't have that extension installed on this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and import all the things and create it manually. So I'm going to go down and say const, I'm going to say layout, and then this is going to be equals to the following, right? So I'm going to simply say here and just say children, and once I have that, I'm going to simply say use an arrow function, and what I'm going to say, I'm going to simply have a return statement here. So return statement is going to return the following. So instead of this return statement, I'm going to have a fragment, and instead of the fragment, I'm just going to go ahead and say the following. So I need to create I'm going to create a meta tag that is also used for that is used to specify the headers. Instead of specifying the headers in each of those files, you can create a meta component that can return all the other stuff that we need. I can also go and create a react a navigation bar, and also return the navigation bar right here. But for now, what I want to do is return a div, and instead of this div, I'm going to simply go ahead and for now, we're simply going to go ahead and create another div here, and instead of this div, you're going to simply say we're going to render children. So we're going to pass in children later on, and I'll show you how to deal with all of that. Okay, so because we're accepting children right here, that's what you're going to be passing right here. And this, I want to give it a class name, and the class name is going to be styles dot we haven't imported styles, so I'm going to import styles and just use it. So I'm going to say styles dot main, so main, and this also is going to have another class. So let's give it another class name. So I'm going to say class name, and the class name is going to be styles dot just undo that. So styles dot container, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and import the styles here. So I'm going to say import styles from so I'm going to do the dot /styles home. Okay, home.module .css. okay, so if you go in here, you can find styles, and I'm just importing this home.module.css file. Okay, so that's basically what I'm importing, and this is just some styles that is provided to us by Nextjs by default. So I just want to go and use those styles instead of writing our own styles out. Okay, so once I have that done, I want to go ahead and this actually styles and not styles. Okay, so styles. So once I have that done, I can just go in here and just refresh. This is how it looks like. Okay, good. So I'm just going to go back in here, and what I want to do in here is I want to create another component which is going to be called meta. So meta.js, and instead of meta.js, you're going to have a lot of meta stuff right here. So I'm going to go and grab this from my GitHub page. I'm just going to go into meta and simply copy, so you don't have to waste a lot of time typing all this out. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, and you can find this link in the description to this code base. So this meta tag that gives us a heading, the header tag, basically the title and all that other stuff. Nothing complicated. Okay, so you can pass in the title, and the title will be fixed right here. So you can call this meta tag component anywhere, and it should be called. Okay, so this just give it a different title for if you're doing SEO search engine optimization, right? You can specify all the keywords, all the description, and every stuff here. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here and just say import meta, right? I'm going to import meta, and the meta tag, I'm just going to go ahead and use it right here. I'm just going to say sorry, just tap that. So let's say meta. Okay, so just like that, and I can simply go ahead and close this off like this. So I can pass in the title if I want. So I can say title, and the title is going to be just a string. It will be code with prince. So once I have that done, I can go back in here, and you can see those changes should now be reflecting here. So if I refresh this, it doesn't reflect, because we have to do something else later on for this to reflect. Okay, so how do we for now, before we go back to fixing to make sure that it reflects, let's create another component. I'm going to call this one navigation bar.js. okay, so in navigation bar.js, I'm going to copy the nav bar from my code base here, so you don't have to waste a lot of time typing out the navigation bar code. So I'm going to simply go in here, and then I'm simply going to go ahead and copy the navigation bar code. So copy that and then go back into VS Code and simply paste it in there. So that's basically what I want to do right here. So that's basically it, and I want to go into my layout and I'm going to import it. So I'm going to say import navigation bar, and I'm going to simply place the navigation bar right here. So I'm going to create a component and then simply close that off. So yeah, that's basically it. So now how do we make sure that this reflects? So we go back into our pages, and inside of our pages we have to go to into I think it's the Nextjs, not the Nextjs, sorry, underscore app.js, and inside of here we need to change the following so we can see the layout being displayed here. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and import the I'm going to import bootstrap / disk / css / bootstrap dot min dot css. So I'm going to import that, and I'm also going to go ahead and import another thing. I'm going to import layout. So I'm going to import, sorry, not this one. So I'm going to import layout that's all from, and this is going to be the / components / layout. Okay, we're going to import the layout component here. So let's make sure that we have this layout exported. So I'm going to say export default, and it's going to be layout. So layout, that's all, and from here we can access it and use it right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this code right here so we can use the layout. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm just going to copy this for now, copy this. I'm just going to cut it out, and then for the return statement you're going to say return the following. So we're going to say return, and you're going to say layout, and then close of that, and instead of layout I'm going to paste what I have just copied, right, which is going to be inside of this right here. Okay, so that's all we want for the layout to be able now to reflect. So now if I go back into my my browser, and let me make sure that this actually reflects. Okay, we have an issue here. It says that import trace for import container from bootstrap container. Okay, this is in navigation bar. I don't think you can find the container, so we're having an error finding the container right here. Let me see container. So okay, you have to install React Bootstrap. I think I didn't install React Bootstrap, so I'm just going ahead and actually find it here. So I actually installed Bootstrap instead of React Bootstrap. So let me just go ahead and install that. Okay, so my bad. So I have to go to getting started and then copy the code for React. So let's go to getting started, and I'm going to simply say install this. Let me just say yarn add React Bootstrap in Bootstrap. Okay, so copy that. We only installed Bootstrap previously, so I'm going to copy that, simply exit out, and then say yarn add, and then paste that there. So okay, I made an error. So I'm going to say yarn add. This is going to be Control Shift and V. So run that. So that should now add for what React Bootstrap. So I forgot to install React Bootstrap. I only installed Bootstrap. So let's give it some time for this to get completed, and once this is completed, we can just go ahead and restart our server all over again. So that's done. So I'm going to say yarn and then dev. So now this is running. So I'm just going to go in here into our browser, and let's try to refresh this. Yeah, so now you can see our code is running. So we have the dashboard here, and then we have code with prints here. So everything works as expected, right? So great. So once we have that done, now I want to go ahead and create a grid component that you're going to use to display our data. So what I'm just going to go ahead and close this for now. I'm going to go into index, and first of all, what I'm going to do inside of my index.js, my index.js file is the first thing is I want to get the data from the back end. So let's first of all, let's make sure our API is running. So I'm going to go here and then check this is running. Yeah, it is running. So let me just go back here and return to the front end. Okay, just here I'm going to go ahead and simply import get the data. So we have this function called get server side props. So this will make sure that our page re-renders every time the page is requested, to make sure that we get the latest data from our back end. So we're going to have this function is going to call export, and you're going to simply say const, and this one we get server side props. So this is, you have to use the same name, you have to use the same naming convention. Like the name of this function get server side props must be exactly as it is, okay, or else you get an error. So what I'm going to do is say const, I'm going to say res is going to be equals to await. I'm going to say fetch, I'm going to use the fetch API, and I'm going to say http colon 2//, and this is going to be localhost at port 8000, right? That's where our server is running on. So I'm going to go and get the request, and I'm going to say const data, and it's going to be await. So we're going to await this, and it's going to be res.json to get the JSON back. So once I get that, I can simply go ahead and say return, and then return the following. So I'm going to return an object, because it's going to have a props, and the props is also going to be an object that has data inside of it, and data is what you're getting back from here. So it's going to be returning data. So on the home page here we need to expect data, so data, and then we can now we can even console.log the data if you want. So console.log, and then you can pass in the data. So let's actually see how this works and if you're getting any error. So I'm just going to go back into my here and just go inspecting, and we can inspect inside. We're going to console, and we can we didn't get any information back. So if I refresh this, okay, we get it back. So we get data, and you can see we have the information here, which is all the requests that we get from the back end, right? So this is the same thing that we're getting back here is being returned here. So we're getting all the data back in the front end. So if I zoom in for you guys to be able to see, you can see we have that information right here, all that information. Okay, good. So once we have that, I'm going to go back inside of my VS Code, and what I want to go ahead and do is we can actually delete this the log information if you want, but I've just leave it here for debugging purposes. Okay, so now what I want to go ahead and do is go ahead and create another component. It's going to be called the grid component, that is going to contain all of our grid. Okay, so I'm going to go into of my components folder, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to simply call it let's call it, it's going to be called simply grid. Okay, so I'm going to simply call it grid chartgrid.js. So I'm going to say chart grid, so chartgrid.js. So instead of chartgrid.js, what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and import React from React. Import React from React. So I don't need a semicolon. You can use it if you want, but I'm not going to be using semicolons anyway. I'm going to say import styles from, this is going to be styles /home. Yeah, I think it's / home /module /css, right? Sorry, .css and not /. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and create a component. I'm going to say const is going to be chart grid, and this is going to be equals to an arrow function. So this, and what you're going to simply go ahead and do here is this return. I'm going to have a return statement right here, and you're just going to go ahead and return a div. So I'm just going to a div. This is going to be a div. Sorry, my bad. So a div. And instead of this div, you're going to give it a class name, and the class name is going to be styles dot grid, just like that. So we're going to have the grid components right here, and inside of here, you're going to have each of these. You're going to have a grid inside of this. So I'm just going to leave a. Let me just write a comment there for now. I'm just going to say h3, and you're going to say grid components. Okay, so if I now go into the front end, we should now be able to see the grid components. So if I refresh, we don't actually see any grid component. The reason why is because I haven't called it anyway. So I'm going to go inside of my index.js, and I'm going to put the grid component right here. So I'm going to say import chart grid from, right, it's going to be a string, so /components chart grid. So I'm going to go ahead and display that chart grid component here, and I'm going to simply say chart grid, and then that's all I need to do. Okay, so just go in here and let's check if it's running. So we have an issue right here which it says expecting something. Right now we'll deal with all that issue later on. Let me make sure that I have everything specified. Let's see why we're getting that error. Let me go in here. Okay, you're not exporting this, so I'm going to say export default. I'm going to say chart grid, just like that. So let me just go back and check if that error is solved. So we have, okay, you have another error here. This is actually called styles and not style. Okay, so that's bad. Okay, so now you can see the chart grid components right here. Okay, So now I want to go ahead, what I want to go ahead and do is actually display the different chart components. Okay, so let's actually start with the first graph, and this first graph is going to be the graph that shows the different products, like the different branches, and how much they have made. Let me just check it here. So let me just check it here so we don't guess this out. So we want to go get data, and I want to go ahead and get the date. Let me see. This is a gross income data. Gross income data. Let me see what data I want from this. So I want the data to be I want to first draw the first line chart, right, a line graph, and I want to be the gross income data right here. So I want to draw the income from each of these specific branches. Okay, so if I go back in here, we need to pass our data that we got from the index here. We need to pass it in here. So I'm going to say data, and data is going to be data right here. Okay, and from Chart.js here we need to expect data. So I'm going to go ahead and expect data. So I'm going to now go ahead and expect data, and I'm going to use passing the data and work with the data from here. So I'm going to go ahead and create another component, and this is going to be called gross income .js. Okay, so give it any name you want. I'm just going to call mine gross income.js, and what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually very simple. I'm going to simply go ahead and I'm going to import React. So I'm going to say import React. Okay, so once I have React imported, I want to go ahead and import another thing. So I'm going to say I'm going to import line. So I'm going to say line. I'm going to import line from React Chartjs -2, just like that. So I'm going to import sorry, this time we import I'm confusing a bit of Python with JavaScript, right? So I'm going to say import styles from this is going to be /styles /home.module.css, just like that. Okay, so once I have that thing so now that I have all those imported, I want to simply go ahead and simply create the comment that you're going to be returning. We're going to call this one, is going to be called gross. So I'm going to say gross income, and this is going to be simply, it's going to be an arrow function. So we're going to get an arrow function, and instead of this function you're going to expect them to pass in the data, right? So we're going to expect the data to be passed in here. So I'm going to expect data. So once I have this, I'm going to have a return statement. So return statement, and the return statement is going to be the following. So we're going to have a div component right here. So it's going to be div, and then instead of the div component I'm going to have a class name, and class name is going to be styles dot you're going to say styles.card is going to be a card, and all this information for creating the card is here inside of this code that we get from Chart.js, from Nextjs, whenever we create a Nextjs app. Okay, so I'm going to have a h2 tag, and this is going to be I'm going to simply pass in here the following. So I'm going to simply say data dot label right there. I'm going to say data dot label, so let me get the L there. So once I have that, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to create a line there. So I'm going to simply say line. We imported a line already. Okay, so I'm going to say line, and what I'm going to do in, I'm going to pass in the following. So I'm going to go ahead and say the following. So I'm going to say data set key ID, and I'm going to say ID, and that's all. And I'm also going to go ahead and say data, and data is going to be equals to the following. So it's going to be an object of containing an object. We're going to pass in the labels. We're going to pass in the labels, and the labels is going to be the following. So the labels is going to be data dot labels, right? The labels which you get from our data, right? So in this case, let me just data dot labels, and in this case, if I go in here, our labels will be we just try to refresh this to see if I can get the data. Yes, I get the data, and then gross profit. We're getting the labels, which is going to be the name of the different branches, right? Okay, so once we have that information, what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go to the next line. I'm going to say data sets, right? And the data set is going to be the following. So it's going to be a list of objects, right, which are going to have the following. So we're going to have the label, and the label is going to be data.label, just like that. And data.label is if you look here again, you can see the data, each one has a label which is a title basically. Okay, and I'm also going to say the data, and the data is going to be data, right? The data that we have inside of our data field, and we're just going to get that access to that data, data, which is this right here. Okay, Okay, so once we have that, I'm now going to go ahead and specify the background color and all that information. For this, I'm just going to go ahead and grab it from my GitHub page so you don't have to waste a lot of time. So I can see I'm going to go ahead and simply copy this and simply move the in here and simply paste it in here. So we're going to have a background color. So let me just keep a comma right here. We're going to have a background color which is just an RGBA color. So the first three values are for RGB values, and the third value right here, the fourth value is for the transparency. So for the background color, we're going to have a transparency, okay, and for the border color, we're not going to have a transparency. Also, we have a border width of 1, okay. So that's basically it. So once that's all we need to do to be able to create this line graph using the data. So now we're going to call this right here. So I simply went ahead and imported it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and let me just import it again. So I'm going to say it's going to be gross. Okay, we need to actually export it from here, so I have to go down here and say export default, and this is going to be the gross income. Okay, so I'm going to go down here, I'm going to say gross income, and I'm going to go ahead and import it. And down here I'm just going to go ahead and remove this title. I don't need it anymore, so I'm just going to say gross income, and I'm going to go ahead and pass in the data, right? So I'm going to say data, and data is going to be data dot gross, I think it's gross underscore income underscore data. And if you check here, this is what I'm trying to talk about. If I go here, we have the data. You're still getting an error. It says that so let me just look at the data for now. So data dot gross income data, that's what we're looking for. So we have an element type is invalid, expected a string but got undefined. You likely forgot to export your component from the files defined in, or you might have mixed up the name. Okay, so let's actually check. We have an error right here, and okay, gross income, and we call it here gross income. Yeah, so export default, and you're exporting that gross income. Why is that error probably coming from? So we're getting the error from, let me just for somebody just comment this out for now, and let's check on the front end. Okay, that error goes away. So let me just refresh this. The error goes away. So the error is probably coming from our components for creating the app. So let's go in here and uncomment this, and let's actually find where we probably made an error. So we're saying we're exporting this, and you're exporting this, we're creating a chart, you're creating a header, and having the data set, you're going to pass in the data ID. This could be anything, but I just call it ID. We have the data, which is an object consisting of an object having a label, data set data dot labels, and then you have a data sets, and which have the label, the data, and the background color, everything. And then finally we export default of the background color, the gross income. And down here just going to import the gross income and then pass in the data that we passed in, right? So where are we getting that error? So it says chart grid, name of method chart grid. So okay, so if we called it chart grid, I made an error right here. Previously I called it chart, I said a chart grid, so I actually changed that, changed it, so it's going to be a chart grid. And if you go in here, it's going to be chart grid, import chart grid. So I'm going to say we're going to create a constant chart grid equals to this, and we're going to go ahead and export it here. And then from in here, we're going to go ahead and import it. So import chart grid from here, from chart grid, and down here, just going to display that chart grid. So I wonder why we are getting that error. I don't know where we're getting that error. So we are getting this error of chart grid. Did I make an error anywhere? So let me just check the naming here. So chart grid and chart grid. Right, yeah, so we have chart grid, and I'm going to go ahead and import chart grid. Okay, let me just go ahead and import again, import chart grid. Okay, and down here I'm using chart grid right here, and I'm passing in the data. So why is that error occurring? Let me just refresh this again. So we still have the same error. So or you might have mixed up default. So export default is an default export. So export default chart grid. So I don't know why we are getting that error. So let me just comment this out for now. If I comment that out, it works. Let me just refresh this. So if I comment the code out, it works. So what's probably the error here? So let me just return a h3 and say h3, and let's say hello. Let's see if that's going to work. And it works. So the problem is probably inside of our gross profit income code here. So gross income, I'm just going to copy that and let's say paste it here. Sorry, let me get that name from here, copy that name, so copy it and then go in here and paste it here, and also paste it here. Okay, so I don't know why we are getting that error from. Okay, so now it works. Now we have an error. Now this error is something that I expected, so I don't know where we got that error from. I think I probably made a typo somewhere, so sorry for that. So what now we get, this error is what I was expecting. So let's go ahead and actually solve this error. So to solve this error, we have to say import chart from Chartjs /auto, and that should solve that error for us. Okay, this is something that we have to import to solve that error. So once we have that imported, we can see now the error is solved, and now the code looks that we have the graph looking like this. So if I expand this, you can see now it looks like this. Okay, good. So one thing I also forgot to mention is that I also made some changes to the default CSS that comes with Chart.js, with the Nextjs application. So you can actually, I'm just going to go in here, go to styles, and then click on home here, and then simply copy everything and paste it here. So copy everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy everything. So I'm going to select everything here, everything, and just simply copy it and go back in here and go into my home, and then simply select everything and paste what I have copied. These are just some changes that I made to make our graph look a bit bigger and better. Okay, so don't worry about those changes. Just simply go ahead and copy that and paste it. It will make the graph look bigger. Okay, so I don't want to waste time, so that we write all that CSS and all that. I don't want us to waste that time. Okay, so you can see now we have the graph. We have branch A, we have branch C, we have branch B. Okay, so good. So now we have this graph being displayed properly. What then I want to go ahead and do next is to draw the next graph, and the next graph is going to be a bar graph. Okay, product by let me just see what graph you're going to draw next. So the next graph, you're going to simply go ahead inside of our chart grid here, and let's see what the next graph you're going to be drawing. So the next graph you're going to be drawing is going to be a bar chart. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and draw that bar chart graph. So to do that, I'm going to go inside of my components, right, and create another file, and it's going to be called bar chart .js. So I'm going to go and import React. Now I have that imported. I'm going to go ahead and import bar graph. So I'm going to import bar from, this is going to be from, and this is going to be React Chart.js, and I'm also going to go ahead and import chart from Chart.js /auto, and I'm also going to go ahead and import my styles from /styles home.module.css, just like that. Okay, now I have those imported. I'm going to create a component. So I'm going to call it this is going to be bar chart. So I'm going to say bar chart bar. Okay, let me get that. So bar chart, and bar chart is going to be equals to the following, right? So you can give it a more descriptive name. That's, instead of calling it bar chart, you can call it something more descriptive. And this, you're going to simply go ahead and let me see which graph you're going to be drawing, and let's try to use the name of that graph instead of just the random name that we have. So we're going to be going ahead and drawing the sales by branch. So let me just, you can actually call it sales by branch instead of just graph, right? So that is more descriptive. Okay, so it's going to be called sales by branch. So let's actually go ahead and we can rename our file. So let me just rename this. I'm going to rename it. Sorry, I'm going to be renaming it and not deleting it. So rename, and I'm going to simply call it it's going to be called sales by branch. Okay, so once I have it here, I'm going to also call this one sales by branch. Okay, so sales by branch, and I'm going to pass in the data here. So I'm going to expect to pass in the data, and you're going to have an arrow function which is going to have the following code. So you're going to simply go ahead and say return. We're going to return, and you're going to return this component right here. You're going to have a div component. So you're going to have div, and then you're going to have a class name, and the class name is going to be styles.card. You're going to have a card here, right? And you're going to have a h2 tag. So it's going to be h2. And this h2, we're going to give it a class name. So we're just going to give it a name rather instead of a class name. So name this, and then you're going to simply say the following. So we're going to pass in data.label, just like that, which is going to be the title. And then here we go ahead and draw the graph. So we're going to simply go ahead and say I'm going to create a bar graph here. So bar graph, and just close that off as follows. Okay, so in here, what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to simply say data assets key ID. I'm just going to call it ID, or what, just give it a random name. Okay, then you're going to say data, and data is going to be equals to the following. So data is going to be a list of an object, so an object containing an object. They're going to have labels, and the labels is going to be data dot labels, and then you're going to go ahead and have another data, and data is going to be data dot data. And then you're going to have the background color and all that information. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this from my GitHub page, so I don't have to waste a lot of time typing that RGB code out. So I'm just going to go back here, go into my components. I call this one bar chart, so I'm going to go to bar charts and then simply copy it right here. Just copy this information, and I can just go back here and simply go ahead and paste it here. So that's all I want. So I want a background color, since they're going to be for sales by branch, so I'm going to be 4 different graphs. So I'm going to have actually going to be 6 of them, right? So I'm going to have coloring for all of those 6. That's basically it. Okay, so I can go ahead and delete this from there. So that's all we need. Now I'm going to go ahead and export this. So I'm going to export default, and the default is going to be, we call it sales by branch. Okay, so once I have that, I'm going to go into my grid component, and I'm going to go ahead and say import. I think I made an error here, so this is sales styles. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to say import sales by branch, and I can go here and display that grid. So I'm going to say sales by branch component, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a data. So when we say data is going to be equals to data dot data dot I think it's called data dot data. So the name that I gave to it is called total underscore sales underscore per underscore branch, and all this is available inside of the API information. So if you go here, you should be able to find it here inside of the console log. You should be able to find it, or you can also go in here and be able to find. So total sales by branch, which is what this right here. So I'm just going to copy that and then go back in here and then make sure I get the spelling there right. So total sales by branch, and complete that out. Okay, that's basically what I need. Now let's check if it's running in the front end. So I'm going to go in here and cannot read property of undefined maps. Okay, so getting another error right here, probably made a lot of errors. So let's actually go ahead and simply go ahead and go in here, and you make sure we are calling this is going to be a chart. You're going to have a label right here, and we have the data sets, data.label, and then we have this one right here. Okay, it looks like I didn't provide in the data sets. We didn't provide it in here. So let's go actually make sure that we specify the data set. I don't see us providing in the data set information. So let's check in here and see what we missed. Okay, so I missed the data set information. So I need to go ahead and say data set, and the data sets is going to be now the data set that we want. So it's going to be a list. So this is going to be a list, and it's going to have an object, and that object is what we're going to pass in here. So we're going to say label, and the label is going to be data.label. Okay, and then you're going to pass in data, and data is going to be data.data. And yeah, that's basically it. And all this other information which you have right here, I'm going to simply copy it, and it also goes in here. So sorry for that error. It's probably made an error right there, so sorry for that error. And once I go in here and refresh this, now we should be able to see that graph here. So we see each of those branches and how much they sold in each of those branches. So now if you look here, we have 6 of this color grid. So I can just remove it because we have only three of those colors, so 3 of those bars, right? So I can delete the rest of the coloring if I want. So that's basically it. And now once I run it again, now we should basically have the same code again here. So sorry for that. When I was making I made an error right here. I didn't specify the data sets field. Okay, so that's basically how you can draw the data, the bar grid, showing the sales of each of these individual companies. So we have the gross profit per branch, we have the total sales per branch. Okay, so now once we have that, now let's see what's the next graph that I want us to draw. So the next graph is going to be let me check which next graph you're going to be drawing. So the next graph is going to go you're going to draw the shopping hour graph. okay, like the shopping hour graph. So let's go ahead and actually go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and create another component. I'm going to call it shopping hour. All right, shopping hour graph. So I'm going to go here, components, create a component. I'm going to call it shopping hour graph, just like this .js. So instead of shopping hour graph.js, what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and import all the things that we need. So I'm going to import React. Okay, well, once I have React imported, I'm going to go ahead and import this is going to be a bar graph, so I'm going to say import bar and from React JS. So I'm also going to go ahead and import styles from, and it's going to dot / styles / and it's going to be home.module.css, and I'm going to create a component. I'm going to simply call it shopping hour. So I'm going to create shopping hour graph, and this is going to be equals to an arrow function, and you're going to simply go ahead and say return. We're going to have a return statement right here, so return, and you're going to return the following. So you're going to have a div component, so div, and div component, you're going to have a class name, and the class name is going to be styles.cad, right, styles.cad, and we're going to have a h2 tag. So we're going to say h2 tag, and this h2 tag is going to be equals to the following. So we're going to say data.label. Yeah, that's basically it. And now we're going to have the chart component right here, so the graph is also going to say bar graph, and let's close off that. So we're going to pass in the following. So we're going to go ahead and have data set key ID, and I'm going to call it ID, just ID, and I'm going to have now the data, and data is going to be equals to an object of an object, and you're going to have labels in there. So labels is going to be data.labels labels, and you're going to go ahead and have data set. So data set, and this is going to be a list of an object. So we're going to pass in our label, right, which is going to be data.label, and you're going to go ahead and pass in the data, right, and data is going to be just data.data, and then you're going to go ahead and pass in the background color, okay, which I'm just going to go ahead and grab it from here. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and grab this information from here and just go into here and simply paste it here. Okay, that's basically it. Okay, so once we have that, this is going to be only for the first graph. So this is going to be actually, we're going to go ahead and actually change this a bit. So it's going to be data, but now we have three different branches. It's going to be data.a. Okay, so this will be data.a, and even here is going to be data.a, but it's going to be branch A, right? So this is referring to branch A, branch A's data. So that's basically it. And once we have that, let's go ahead and display it instead of our grid. So I'm going to go ahead and say import it here. So I'm going to import shopping. Okay, I don't think I exported it here, so I'm going to export it, right? So I'm going to say export default, and I'm going to call it shopping our graph. Okay, and I'm going to go in and say shopping our graph and import it, and down here I'm going to simply pass in here. So it's going to be shopping our graph, and then we're going to close off that. So it's going to be data is going to be equals to, right, so data.data. Shopping, let me just look at the name that this has. So just look in here, it's going to be called the shopping data. I think it's the very last one. So the data is called shopping hour data. So I'm just going to grab the name here and then simply go back in here and simply paste it here. So shopping hour data, and then close off that. Okay, yeah, so that's all we need. So now once I have this done, I can simply go ahead and check it here. So we have an error here, data is not defined. So data, so I didn't actually expecting to pass in any data, so we're getting that error. So I'm going to go in here and expect us to pass in data, right? So I'm going to say data right here. So once I expect us to pass in data, now it should work. Now we have only of one company, so now we have to now have of three different branches: branch A, branch B, and branch C, right? So what I'm simply going to go ahead and do is copy the code and paste it a couple of times. So I'm just going to go inside of my data set and not anywhere else. Okay, so I have to go inside of my data set right here and just simply copy this and paste it a couple of times more. Okay, so I'm going to simply copy this, And once I have it copied, I'm going to go ahead and paste it 3 more times. So paste it again, and then now let me just format my document. So format that, and so what I want to do is now all this has to be a branch B, and this is going to be branch B, and then down here is going to be branch C, and this is going to be branch C. So I'm just going to save that, and once I have that saved, I can check it out. So now we have branch A, right? So branch A, you can see that you have the morning, right? The morning is the first data, the morning, the daytime, and then the evening. For the branch B, we have the morning, the daytime, and the evening, and then for branch C, we have the morning, the daytime, and the evening. So you can control this. So if you click on this evening, it minimizes the evening section. If you click on day, it minimizes the day section. If you click on morning, it minimizes the morning section. So that's basically the graph that we are going to create, right? So yeah, so that's we have learned to create these different graphs. So now the other graphs that you want to create are actually going to be very, very simple to this one right here. Okay, so the other graphs we're going to create is going to be a pie chart graph and all the other graphs. So let me just check what the next graph we should create. So I'm just going to go inside of my chart grid here. Let's see what's the next graph that I want us to create. The next graph is going to be product line by sales. Okay, so product line by sales. So if you look inside of here, if I go to inspect, then I go to inside of my console, if I select console, and I go inside of the data. I'm not actually console logging the data. Let me see, I'm actually logging it out. Yeah, data, and data.data. So the product line by sales, you can see all the different information that we have. So I want to plot the product line by total sales. This is what I want to work with right now. So product line by total sales. So to do this, we're going to be using this is going to be product line by sales. So let me just get this code from my GitHub page so we don't have to waste time, because basically it's just going to be the same thing that you're going to be going over and over again. So product line by sales, and you're going to be using this a pie chart. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab all this information from here. Simply copy it. So let me just make this bigger. So copy it, go inside of here, and then create another component, and this is going to be called product line by sales.js. Okay, and I'm just going to go in here and paste that code right here. So product line by js. Okay, I copied the wrong thing, so I'm just copy it properly, and then go back in here, control everything, and then paste it. Okay, I did an error right here. I think I selected the wrong thing, so let me just copy that again. So I'm just going to copy this, go back in here, control everything, and then paste it. So once I have this done, I can go back in here. I'm just going to say import product line by sales. So import product line by sales, and I can go in here and just display. So I'm going to say product line by sales, and I'm going to say data is going to be equals to, right? So data is going to be equals to the following. So I'm just close of this. It's going to be data dot product underscore line underscore product line by total sales. So we call it product line by total sales underscore by total underscore sales, just like that. So just once I have this done, I can go in here, and let me go back to my front end, and now you can see we have that graph right here, which is just a pie chart showing the product line by sales. So you can minimize this, you can just play with the different functions, and then plot that graph. So yeah, that's basically it. That's what I wanted us to go over. So there are different graphs you can plot, and I showed you at the beginning how all the different graphs we have. So all the code is here on my GitHub page, so you can find every of the code that I used. Now let's go ahead and actually draw the combined product data, and then that will be the end. So if I go back to combined product data, let me just see if I have it. Combined product data, product combined. So let me just see product combined data. We have this one right here. So you can find all this graph is available on my all this code is available on my GitHub page. So that's basically the same code that you're repeating over and over again. Basically there's nothing basically new to it. So just get the combined product data, and then I'm going to go ahead and create another component, and it's going to be product line combined dot js. So once I have that, I can simply go ahead and paste the code in there, and I can go in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and import it. So import product line combined, and then I can just go ahead and display it here. So I'm just going to create and say product line combined here, and I can pass in the data is going to be equals to, right, and then we close off this section. So the data, we're going to pass in three individual data sets, right, and all that data is going to be visualized here. So we're going to pass in 3 individual data sets because we're combining each product line by the different cells, right? So the product line by cells. So to do that, you're just going to go ahead and say, let me try to get this graph from the code from my GitHub, so that we save a lot of time instead of because basically it's just the same thing that you're going to be repeating over and over again. So I want us to go ahead and save a lot of time, and I'm going to make this code available. The link is going to be in the description. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right here. So that's basically it. So we're going to have the product line, and we're going to have the first data, the second data, and then the third data. The first one is going to be product line by rating, product line by gross income, and then product line by sales. So we have a product line, and then each product line will have its own the number of sales that was made in that product line, the number of rating of that product line got, and the gross profit that product line got. So if I go back here and I go, we should now be able to see that graph, which is this one right here. So you can see product line by sales is now you're having only 2 data, right? Let me just minimize. You have product line by rating, so we can see data A has the most rating, and then data B has the most rating, and then all of that. So product data by combined. So you can see also here we have we can minimize this, and we can see the different graphs that we have. Okay, yeah, so inside individual graphs we have the product line by rating by sales, right, data for the first data, and then this one is going to be product line data for the data 2, and then this is going to be for data 3. And all of this, to understand all of this more, you can look at the graph that we have from here, right? You can understand all of this much clearer. Yeah, so that's the different graphs that you can draw, and different ways you can visualize the data using Nextjs application. So all the other graphs that you're going to be drawing, the code is going to be here. Just basically the same graphs that you're just playing around with, but having different combining different data sets. So that's basically it, and how we can simply draw create a simple dashboard using Chart.js. So that's it for this tutorial. And again, if you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please kindly consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking this video, and sharing this content with anyone who you think might find it helpful. So that marks the end of this tutorial. And if you guys enjoyed this tutorial so far, please kindly make sure that you like the video, comment, and leave a comment and let me know how the video was. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.